Graduation day should have been the brightest moment of Shara's life. But while the crowds at Ravenwood University cheered and celebrated, she was dragged into a quiet, hidden corner by two classmates she once trusted. Their voices were sharp, whispering about her scientific discovery, a breakthrough that could save countless lives. They wanted to steal it, claim it, and silence her completely. What they didn't realize was that someone was watching. Officer Ethan, attending his sister's graduation, noticed the strange scene. Beside him stood Rex, a trained K-9 whose instincts never missed danger. In that shadowed corner, Shara's world began to fall apart, but fate had already placed the right protector in her path. This was the moment everything changed, the beginning of a fight for truth that no threat could silence. If this story moves you, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories. Shara Williams, 22, stood near the edge of the crowd. Small but composed, with skin the color of warm chestnut and tightly coiled hair arranged neatly behind her head. She was the top graduate of her class in biomedical sciences, known for her quiet brilliance and the fierce work ethic shaped by years of hardship after losing her mother to breast cancer. Her eyes, deep and observant, often reflected a mix of determination and vulnerability, an echo of someone who had learned early that the world rewarded strength but punished honesty. Today was supposed to be her day. Her name had just been called. Her family wasn't here, but she had promised herself she would smile anyway. But before she could step toward the photo booth or breathe in the pride of her achievement, Kyle Mercer and Jenna Hartley appeared beside her. Kyle, tall with messy blonde hair and a permanent smirk carved into his narrow face, had always carried a false confidence, the kind born not from talent but entitlement. His pale blue eyes were sharp, cold, and calculating. Jenna, shorter but equally intimidating, had sleek auburn hair and a precision-sharpened stare. Her entire posture dripped superiority as though the world existed solely to applaud her. Both had been her teammates in the research group, and both had grown increasingly resentful of her success. "Come with us." "Now," Kyle hissed, grabbing her elbow with a grip that was too tight to be friendly. Shara's stomach tightened. She looked around. No professors, no classmates paying attention, just the roar of applause from the stage and the cheerful blur of cameras flashing. Before she could protest, Kyle and Jenna guided her toward the back of the hall, each step drawing her deeper into a shadowed corner of the building where balloons and banners gave way to silence and peeling brick. "Let go of me," Shara whispered, though her voice trembled. Jenna leaned close, her perfume too sweet, her smile too venomous. "You're going to keep your mouth shut about the compound, understand? That research doesn't belong to you." Shara felt the world tilt. The breast cancer treatment compound, her 3-year project, her mother's legacy, was everything she had. She clutched her graduation folder tighter, heart racing. "You already took the data without permission," Shara said, her voice shaking but her gaze steady. "It's my work. You can't just—" Kyle slammed one hand against the wall beside her, making her flinch. "We can, and we will. Maurice already agreed to file the patent under our names. So unless you want your academic record destroyed, you'll stay quiet." The name hit her like ice. Professor Maurice Langford, a man in his mid-50s with streaks of silver in his once dark hair. Distinguished, charismatic, yet with eyes that always lingered a second too long on power and praise. He wore tailored suits and a permanent polite smile, but Shara had always sensed something hollow beneath it. He was her advisor, the person she had trusted most. And now she understood. He had been grooming Kyle and Jenna for ownership the entire time. Fear scraped down her spine. Kyle stepped closer. "And don't think anyone will believe you. You're just—" He didn't finish the sentence, because footsteps echoed behind them, and then a voice. Calm, firm, dangerous. "I think that's enough." All three turned. There stood Officer Ethan Hale, a 35-year-old police officer attending his younger sister's graduation. He had the kind of presence that silenced a room, the quiet authority of a man carved from discipline and loss. His dark hair was short and slightly tousled by the wind, his jaw square with a faint shadow of stubble, and his broad shoulders carried a tension that suggested he was always ready for conflict. His eyes, steel gray, missed nothing. A faint scar traced along his forearm, a reminder of a rescue mission years ago that had cost him his K-9 partner and left his trust in people fractured. Beside him stood Rex, his current K-9 partner, a 3-year-old German shepherd with a muscular build, dark sable coat, and keen amber eyes that scanned every movement with predatory precision. Rex's ears were alert, his tail still, but the deep, low rumble in his chest revealed exactly what he thought of the scene. Next to Ethan was Lena Gomez, Shara's friend, a petite Latina girl with round glasses, short black curls, and a nervous but loyal heart. She had seen Kyle and Jenna drag Shara away and had sprinted across the courtyard to find help, stumbling right into Ethan. Ethan stepped between Shara and Kyle, his expression unreadable. "Let her go." Kyle opened his mouth as if to protest, but Rex let out a sharper, guttural growl that vibrated through the narrow corridor. Jenna stumbled back, her face draining of color. Kyle raised his hands, trying to look innocent. "We were just talking." "No," Ethan cut him off. "You were threatening her. I heard enough." Under Rex's unblinking stare, Kyle and Jenna backed away, stumbling over their own excuses before turning and disappearing down the hall. Shara exhaled shakily, her knees threatening to give way. Ethan stepped closer, his voice gentler than before. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, though her heart still hammered painfully. "No. I'm just... Thank you." Rex nudged her hand with his nose, offering unexpected comfort. And for the first time that day, Shara felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. But Ethan felt something else, an old, familiar pull in his gut. The sense that what he had stumbled upon today was only the beginning. Something was rotten beneath Ravenwood's polished surface, and he intended to uncover it. A thin veil of dusk settled over Ravenwood University, softening the harsh symmetry of its stone buildings and turning the campus pathways into silver ribbons beneath the lamplight. 3 days had passed since the confrontation behind the graduation hall, and though the sun still shone on the school's pristine courtyard, the warmth had not reached Shara Williams. The world around her looked unchanged. Students still laughed under oak trees, faculty still carried briefcases full of theories and ambitions, but inside her, something vital had begun to crack. She sat alone in the biology department's small courtyard, her graduation gown folded neatly beside her like a memory she could no longer claim. The glow of her phone screen illuminated her face, sharp against the dusk. Her normally steady brown eyes were dim, reflecting lines of exhaustion she tried to hide. She scrolled through academic forums, research news, and then she froze. A new article, published that afternoon, a breakthrough in oncological bioactive compounds, authored by Kyle Mercer and Jenna Hartley, under the guidance of Professor Morris Langford. Her project, her mother's legacy, laid bare under someone else's name. She stared at the headline until the words blurred, the blood draining from her fingers. It felt like betrayal did not just pierce her, it hollowed her out from the inside. She clicked the PDF. Each paragraph was a wound. Every figure, every graph, every conclusion, hers. Copied, reworded, stolen. Her breath hitched. Anger flared, but grief smothered it quickly. She heard footsteps. Lena Gomez appeared, clutching her laptop against her chest. Her small frame trembled. Lena's round glasses caught the dying light, her curls frizzing in the humidity. "Shara, you've seen it too, haven't you?" she whispered. Shara nodded weakly. Lena sat beside her, hands cold. "I tried to email the department dean. He hasn't responded. Kyle and Jenna, they're celebrating. They're calling themselves the youngest breakthrough team in Ravenwood's history. Shara swallowed hard, guilt mixing with dread. I should have known Maurice wouldn't just give up. He's been planning this for months. The thought sank claws into her chest. She stood abruptly. I need to check my notes, my backups. Maybe I can still... But when she reached her dormitory, the air inside the hallway felt wrong. Too still, too quiet. She unlocked her door and stepped into darkness. Then everything shattered. Her room looked like a storm had swallowed it whole. Papers ripped, drawers overturned, hard drives smashed. The delicate glass terrarium she used for controlled experiments lay in shards on the floor, glinting like broken promises. Even her laptop, her last sanctuary, had its screen cracked down the middle. Shara staggered forward, hand covering her mouth. Someone had taken their time. Someone had known exactly what to destroy. This wasn't random vandalism. This was erasure. Every year of work, gone. She dropped to her knees, fingers trembling as they traced torn pages. Her throat tightened, her breath shallow and rapid. Why are they doing this? The question came out as a whisper to no one. In the hallway, a door creaked. A new figure appeared. Tommy Reed, a thin, nervous boy from the computer engineering department. He was lanky, with uneven bangs that fell into hazel eyes always darting from side to side. Known for his timid, apologetic nature, Tommy had suffered bullying in his freshman year and avoided confrontation ever since. His voice trembled as he stepped into the doorway. Shara. I heard noise earlier, but I thought it was just maintenance. She looked up at him, tears reddening her eyes. Did you see anyone? Tommy hesitated, guilt twisting his features. I saw Morris's lab assistant, the tall guy with shaved hair, Leo or something, leaving the building. He looked panicked. But I wasn't sure. I didn't want to cause trouble. The name made Shara go still. Leo Brandon, Maurice's graduate assistant, a burly young man with broad shoulders, a shaved head, and a reputation for blind loyalty. He was built like a brick wall, his silence intimidating. Students whispered that he'd been expelled from another university for a violent altercation, but had been rescued by Maurice. If Leo had been involved? Shara's hands shook harder. Tommy stepped back, ashamed for not acting sooner. I'm sorry, Shara. I was scared. She wasn't angry with him, but she had no strength left to reassure him. He lingered for a breath, then retreated down the hall. Silence pressed in again. Shara sat among the ruins of her dreams, her breath turning thin and uneven until she felt a faint ringing in her ears. She closed her eyes, thinking of her mother, of nights spent studying, of every setback she had overcome to get here. And now, all stolen, all crushed. Her phone vibrated. She opened her eyes, staring at the contact Ethan had typed in himself 3 days earlier. Ethan Hale. If anything feels wrong, call. Any time. She hesitated only a moment, then pressed the number. The call connected instantly. Shara? Ethan's voice was steady, low, carrying that quiet authority that had calmed her once before. In the background, she could hear Rex panting softly like a distant heartbeat. When she spoke, her voice cracked. They took everything. My room, my research, everything is gone. There was silence, but not empty silence. It was the silence of someone holding back anger so sharp it could cut steel. Are you safe? Ethan finally asked. I don't know. Another pause, a shift of breath. Then Ethan's tone dropped, deeper, colder. Stay where you are. I'm coming. Shara pressed her forehead against her knees, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. She did not know what Ethan could do. She did not know how deeply the rot inside Ravenwood ran. But for the first time since she walked into that ruined room, she felt a thread, thin but unbroken, pulling her back from the edge. Ethan was coming, and he would bring the truth into the light. Night draped itself over Ravenwood University like a velvet shroud, softening the sharp corners of its Gothic buildings and casting long shadows across the silent research quadrangle. The lamps flickered faintly, their golden halos touching only the edges of the stone pathways, leaving the deeper corners in a hush of darkness. It was here, under the muted glow of the old courtyard, that Officer Ethan Hale returned, his boots soundless, his breath low, his senses sharpened by years of reading danger in the quiet spaces of the world. Ethan moved through the corridor leading to the biomedical research wing, Rex padding beside him with the stealth of a hunting wolf. The German shepherd's ears twitched with every distant hum of machines still running through the night. His coat glinted faintly in the low light, a sable ripple over dense muscle, taut and alert. Rex was trained for situations where truth hid behind silence, and tonight, Ravenwood felt like a nest of secrets waiting to be exhumed. Ethan paused at the lab entrance. The glass door gleamed with artificial sterility, but behind it, something felt wrong, an absence more troubling than presence. He took out his phone and accessed the day's access logs. As expected, the digital record was clean. Too clean. No entries past 6 p.m. in a lab that usually buzzed with graduate students until midnight. The edges of Ethan's eyes tightened. Someone had wiped it, the precision of it suggesting not a rookie mistake but the hand of someone who knew exactly which strings to pull. Rex sniffed the lowest corner of the door, then looked up at Ethan with a short, soft grunt, his subtle signal for chemical traces. Ethan knelt, ran his gloved fingers along the floor, and lifted them for inspection. A faint smear of cleaning solvent, too harsh to be the school's standard eco-safe formula. Someone had been here, carefully covering their tracks. Around the corner came the shuffle of hurried footsteps. Ethan straightened, hand instinctively brushing the badge clipped inside his jacket. A man turned the corner wearing a gray Ravenwood security uniform. He was in his mid-30s, around 5'9", with a heavy-set build and sweat darkening the fabric under his collar. His name tag read Mason Kerrigan. Mason had dull brown eyes and a twitch at the corner of his mouth. Nervous, evasive, the look of someone who survived by avoiding friction, not causing it. "Officer Hale, right?" Mason stammered, rubbing his palms against his pants. "Campus Patrol told me you were looking around. Everything okay?" Ethan studied him. Mason's avoidance of eye contact, his hurried breathing. He wasn't lying, but he was hiding something out of fear, not guilt. "Logs for this lab were erased," Ethan said quietly. "You're the security supervisor tonight. Who has clearance to wipe entries?" Mason swallowed. "Well, officially, only IT. Unofficially?" His voice dropped. "Professor Langford. He's close to the board. People don't question his requests." The words tasted of fear more than accusation. Ethan nodded and stepped back. "Get some rest, Mason." As Mason hurried away, visibly relieved, Ethan turned his attention to the shadows moving across the hallway. Rex stiffened, his ears locked forward, body lowering into a crouch. A faint metallic click echoed, a door down the hall closing quietly, deliberately. Ethan slipped into the darkness, Rex following as silent as a ghost. At the far end of the corridor was a side entrance rarely used except by senior researchers. A faint sliver of light leaked under the door. Ethan signaled Rex to stay low. The dog obeyed instantly, pressing against the wall while Ethan moved closer, posture fluid and controlled. Through the narrow, wired glass window, Ethan saw a figure hunched over a computer station. Broad shoulders, shaved head catching the glow of the monitor. Leo Brandon, Maurice's graduate assistant. His thick forearms were tightened as he typed with swift familiarity. Leo had the physical form of a man built to push through walls rather than around them, and the emotionless concentration on his square-jawed face only confirmed Ethan's suspicion. Leo wasn't working alone. He was cleaning something. Ethan pulled out his phone, snapping a silent photo of the login screen. Maurice's credentials. A soft thud echoed inside the room, Leo shoving a stack of documents into a heavy-duty shredder. The machine hummed low, chewing away evidence piece by piece. But Leo wasn't alone. A shadow passed behind him, and Ethan caught sight of another newcomer, Helen Marwick, the dean's administrative secretary. She was in her early 40s with tightly pinned dark hair and a slender frame rigid with practiced discipline. Her pale face held refined features, narrow nose, sharp cheekbones, but her eyes were hollow, carrying the weight of someone who spent her life obeying orders she despised. Helen spoke in a whisper, her voice strained. "Hurry, Leo." Langford said the board must see nothing. "That girl is making too much noise." "Shara?" Ethan's jaw clenched. Helen continued. "After tonight, he's meeting with the vice-chancellor to secure protection. If this scandal gets out, we're all—" Leo silenced her with a wave of his hand. "I know what to do." Ethan stepped back, pulse steady but fury simmering. This was no longer academic theft. This was systemic corruption tied to the university's highest levels. He whispered to Rex, "Remember this scent? We'll need it later." Rex nuzzled his hand once. Acknowledgement. Back outside, Ethan moved into the dim campus courtyard. His phone buzzed. An email. From anonymous subject. "Stop digging." Message. "If you care about that girl's future, tell her to stay quiet. This is bigger than you think." He stared at the message, jaw tightening. Someone also knew he was involved. Meanwhile, Shara sat alone in her dorm lounge, the blue glow of her laptop illuminating her face. Her inbox had one new message. "Stop making noise, Shara, or everything gets worse." She shivered, and at the same hour, behind locked lab doors, Morris himself slipped into the dark like a thief. Rex, stationed nearby in the shadows, recorded every movement in silence. Ethan stood under the oak tree at the quad's edge and exhaled slowly. The puzzle was larger than he expected, but the picture was forming. This wasn't a theft. It was a machine, and Shara had been chosen as its next sacrifice. But Ethan Hale didn't let monsters thrive in the dark. Tonight he had seen enough to know the truth was very much alive, and he would drag it into the light. The night settled over Ravenwood University with a hush so complete it seemed the entire campus was holding its breath. The street lamps along the pathways gave off muted halos, their glow swallowed by the cool evening fog drifting in from the nearby lake. The world felt suspended, waiting, unchanged in appearance, yet pulsing beneath the surface with unseen tensions. Ethan Hale stood outside the biomedical building, hands braced on his hips, exhaling a slow breath as he reviewed the photos and notes on his phone. Something was missing. Every corridor he had checked, every record erased, every half-whispered admission pointed to a coordinated effort. But without a clear proof that tied Kyle, Jenna, and Maurice together, he was circling shadows instead of striking at the source. Rex sat beside him, the German shepherd's amber eyes scanning the darkness. The dog's ears twitched with each rustle of wind, his body tense but patient. Ethan sensed the same frustration in Rex, a readiness without a target. "I know, partner," Ethan murmured, rubbing the dog's head. "We're close, but close isn't enough." It was then he heard hurried footsteps coming up the stone steps behind him. He turned sharply, expecting another threat, but instead a familiar small figure skidded to a halt. Lena Gomez, Shara's friend. Her chest rose and fell as she tried to catch her breath. Tonight she looked even smaller than usual. Lena was 21, petite and narrow-shouldered, with short curly hair tied in a loose ponytail that had begun to unravel from her sprint. Her round glasses were fogged, and her warm brown skin seemed paler under the lamplight. But the fear in her wide eyes was not fear for herself. It was fear sharpened into urgency. "Officer Hale," she said, voice trembling but determined. I need to talk to you. Alone." Ethan gestured her toward a bench near the railing, where they sat facing the fog-blanketed quad. He kept his voice steady. "What happened? Is Shara okay?" Lena pressed her hands together until her knuckles whitened. "She's not okay. She's trying to pretend she is, but she's falling apart. The threats, the break-in, her work stolen. She hasn't slept in 2 days." Her voice shook, but her eyes lifted, meeting Ethan's with a haunting seriousness. "And I've been hiding something from her." Rex's ears perked at Lena's tone. Ethan leaned forward. "Tell me." Lena swallowed hard. Her words came out in a rush, as though she feared losing courage if she paused. The day of graduation, when Kyle and Jenna dragged her behind the hall. I saw it happen. I knew something was wrong. I didn't have the courage to step in. I panicked, but I pulled out my phone. I recorded it. All of it. Ethan stiffened, his breath catching. "You recorded the confrontation?" Lena nodded, tears forming at the corners of her eyes but refusing to fall. "I used a hidden recording. Mode. It compresses and encrypts the video immediately. I didn't mean to hide it. I was scared. Professor Maurice is powerful. Everyone knows he ruined a student's career years ago. I didn't want to be next." Her voice cracked. "But Shara needs help. She's been fighting alone this whole time. And when I saw her room, smashed, destroyed, I realized I can't be afraid anymore." Hands shaking, Lena unlocked her phone and opened a secure folder. She turned the screen toward Ethan. There, in grainy but unmistakable clarity, Kyle and Jenna cornered Shara against the wall, their faces twisted with arrogance and desperation. Nina's recording caught every detail. Kyle's hand slamming the wall beside Shara's head, Jenna's taunting smirk, and the venom in their voices. "Keep your mouth shut, Shara," Jenna sneered. "Let Maurice handle the paperwork," Kyle added. "He'll make sure your little contribution is forgotten." "If you try to claim it's yours," Jenna continued, "we'll make sure you never work in research again." Ethan watched the video in stone-cold silence. Not a muscle in his jaw moved, but his eyes hardened with a slow-burning fire that Rex recognized at once, justice sharpening into resolve. When the video ended, Lena looked at him nervously. "I didn't show this to Shara yet. I didn't know if it would hurt her more, but I think you'll know what to do." Ethan closed his eyes for a brief second, letting the video burn itself into his mind. When he opened them, he placed a steady hand on Lena's shoulder. "You did the right thing coming to me. This isn't just proof. This is leverage, and it's going to protect her." Lena exhaled, relief washing over her face so suddenly she almost collapsed forward. Rex nudged her knee gently, as if offering comfort in his own measured way. Ethan stood, energy shifting. Focused now, precise. With this video, Morris can't hide behind the board. Kyle and Jenna can't twist the story anymore. We finally have something solid. But Lena's trembling voice cut through his certainty. "Maurice won't stop easily, will he?" Ethan looked toward the research building, its tall windows reflecting nothing but darkness. "No," he admitted, "but people like him slip up when they know the truth is coming for them, and now we have enough to start pulling everything apart." He paused, letting the moment hold. "Lena," he added quietly, "you may have just saved Shara's future." She covered her face with her hands, overwhelmed by equal parts fear and relief. Inside Ravenwood's shadowed halls, a network built on arrogance and secrecy had thrived for years. But tonight, for the first time, it cracked, and Ethan Hale intended to break it wide open. Morning sunlight slanted through the tall glass walls of Ravenwood University's grand auditorium, warming the polished floors that had been buffed to a mirror sheen for the biggest event of the semester. Banners embroidered in deep navy and gold hung from the ceiling, swaying slightly with the air circulation, while rows of velvet seats filled with faculty, donors, pharmaceutical executives, and students waiting eagerly for the day's presentation. Yet beneath this well-groomed facade, a storm gathered, one only a handful of people knew was coming. Ethan Hale stood near the back of the auditorium, leaning casually against the wall, though the tension in his shoulders was unmistakable. His gray eyes scanned the room, cataloging every detail: the placement of the projection system, the nervous excitement of the guests, the stiff posture of the university board members seated in the front row. Rex lay at his feet, the German shepherd's steady breathing a grounding rhythm in the otherwise charged atmosphere. Ethan wasn't alone. Standing beside him was Caleb Drayton, his closest friend and one of the city's most persistent investigative journalists. Caleb was in his late 30s, tall and lanky with a mess of dark curls that perpetually refused to obey gravity. His complexion held the pallor of someone who spent more time in newsrooms than outdoors, and a thin line of beard shadowed his jaw, evidence of too many sleepless nights chasing leads. Behind his thick-rimmed glasses, his eyes were a sharp, restless hazel, always hungry for truth and always infuriated by injustice. 5 years ago, Caleb had broken a corruption story that nearly cost him his career. The retaliation from powerful figures left him with a deeply rooted distrust of institutions that claimed integrity while dealing in shadows. Now he held his tablet tightly, thumb brushing the edge as he prepared the final upload. "Files ready," Caleb murmured. "One click, and the auditorium system will pull it instead of Morris's deck." Ethan nodded. "We only get one shot. Once it goes live, we don't know how fast they'll cut power." Caleb let out a humorless chuckle. "Doesn't matter, it'll be enough." Across the room, Professor Maurice Langford entered to the sound of casual applause. Dressed in a charcoal suit with a matching tie, he carried himself with the confidence of a man used to being adored. His salt-and-pepper hair was slicked back immaculately, and his smile, smooth, practiced, spread effortlessly as he greeted donors. But his eyes, cold and dark, shifted restlessly beneath the veneer. Maurice towered over most people in the room, his lean frame stiffened with arrogance. But today, Ethan saw something brittle beneath that arrogance. Fear, anticipation, or perhaps the instinctive sense that his carefully constructed tower was about to tilt. The representatives of Dynus Pharma, the multinational pharmaceutical giant, took their seats near the stage. Among them was Dr. Ursula Venn, a woman in her mid-40s with short silver hair, dark skin, and a sharp nose that gave her the hawk-like appearance of someone who never missed a lie. Her tailored suit was navy with crisp white accents, and the poised way she folded her hands suggested she was not here to be impressed. She was here to judge. Shara slipped discreetly into the back row with Lena Gomez by her side. The exhaustion on Shara's face lingered, but determination had replaced despair. She sat upright, fingers clenched around her notebook. Ethan caught her eye and gave a subtle nod, silent reassurance that today would be different. The lights dimmed. A hush fell. Maurice approached the podium, clearing his throat. "Thank you all for attending. Today I am proud to present years of groundbreaking research developed under my guidance. A revolutionary compound with immense potential in breast cancer treatment," Ethan whispered. "Now." Caleb tapped the screen. A soft electronic click echoed from the control booth. Morris clicked to advance his first slide, but it wasn't his slide. The auditorium screen flickered, then displayed the grainy video of Kyle and Jenna cornering Shara behind the graduation hall. Gasps burst through the crowd. Shara stiffened, breath catching as her suffering projected 30 feet wide. Kyle's voice rang out, amplified by the speakers. "Keep your mouth shut, Shara. Maurice will handle the paperwork." Jenna's taunting voice followed. "We'll ruin your career if you try to claim it." Maurice froze at the podium, face bleaching white. Before he could react, the display cut to the next clip. Maurice, Kyle, and Leo sneaking into the lab at night, copying Shara's files, deleting logs, and shredding evidence. The room erupted into murmurs. some furious, others stunned silent. Then the final blow landed. Caleb's compilation of news articles from 5 years earlier, revealing Maurice's involvement in a major plagiarism scandal that had been buried by board members. The cumulative truth played like a dam bursting. Dr. Ursula Venn rose to her feet, her gaze slicing through the auditorium. Edinus Pharma will no longer consider Professor Langford or Ravenwood University for our grant. This presentation violates every ethical code in biomedical practice. Board members fumbled for explanations. Students whispered. Journalists in the room began recording. Maurice's composure disintegrated. His hands trembled. A crack spread through his controlled mask, and he stammered, This is doctored. It's taken out of—" Security approached him with grim expressions. The dean, a tall man with thinning gray hair, stood motionless, shock turning his features stiff. He looked as though someone had slapped him awake after a long dream of complacency. Maurice was escorted off stage, humiliation clinging to him like a shroud. His career, once polished and untouchable, shattered before hundreds of witnesses. Ethan stepped forward into the aisle, locking eyes with Shara. In her expression was disbelief, relief, and something close to gratitude strong enough to break her voice if she tried to speak. Rex pressed against Ethan's leg, ears perked, sensing the shift. Storm over. Truth won. But the war was not yet finished. Morning rain lingered over Ravenwood University, leaving a sheen across the walkways that glimmered like liquid glass beneath the pale sunlight. The storm from the night before had finally passed, but the true storm, the one that had shaken the university's foundations, was still echoing inside its administrative halls, and today the echoes were loud. Inside the main conference chamber, a room lined with walnut paneling and portraits of former chancellors, the air was unbearably tense. Long tables formed a hollow square where board members, deans, and legal advisors gathered with stiff expressions. The thick carpet swallowed the noise of shifting feet, but not the quiet dread rippling through the institution. Shara Williams sat at the end of the table, her back straight but her hands subtly clenched together. She had dressed with care. Dark navy blouse, neatly pressed black trousers, hair pulled back into a professional bun. Not out of vanity, but because today mattered. Today, she refused to appear as anything less than the scientist she had fought to become. In her eyes, the exhaustion of the past weeks still flickered, but a softer flame. Resolve, pride, vindication glowed beneath it. To her left sat Dean Aidan Kepler, the university's principal administrator. Kepler was in his early 60s, with iron-gray hair combed meticulously to the side and thick brows that arched over watchful, sea-blue eyes. His broad shoulders carried decades of academic pressure, yet his face, lined with sleepless wrinkles, showed something rarely seen in academic leadership: regret. Deep, quiet regret. He was a man who had spent too long relying on the comfort of routine, allowing subordinates like Maurice to rise unchecked. Now he faced his consequences with a grim determination. Across the room, Professor Maurice Langford was seated between two legal consultants. His once proud posture had collapsed into a half-slump, his eyes sunken, dark rings pooling beneath them like bruises of his own arrogance. Without his polished suit and confident smile, Morris looked older, hollow, almost brittle, as though the truth had drained the color from his face. His fingers tapped nervously against the table, betraying a man unaccustomed to losing control. Kyle and Jenna sat farther down, pale and stiff. Kyle's messy blonde hair no longer carried the swagger it once held. Instead, his posture curled inward with fear. Jenna, who usually embodied sharp confidence, stared blankly at the table, lips pressed so tightly they were nearly bloodless. Their collapse was not dramatic, just quiet and slow, a realization dawning that their futures could not be glued back together. At the front of the room, Dean Kepler cleared his throat. "We have received full evidence," he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Video recordings, digital timestamps, data theft logs, and confirmation from external cybersecurity analysts. This is not academic collaboration. This is premeditated theft. Morris shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening. I demand the right to explain. You will have that opportunity, Kepler replied coldly, but it won't change the findings. Beside Shara, Ethan Hale sat with calm composure. He wore a simple charcoal jacket over a crisp shirt, sleeves rolled up, hinting at the quiet strength beneath. His presence seemed to steady Shara's breathing. His expression held no gloating, only unyielding conviction. Meanwhile, Rex, sitting by his feet, observed the room with alert golden eyes, as if aware the humans were resolving something monumental. Kepler continued. Effective immediately, Professor Langford is suspended pending full investigation. Kyle Mercer and Jenna Hartley are under academic disciplinary review for fraud and misconduct. Several board members nodded solemnly. And, Kepler turned toward Shara with something close to a respectful bow of his head. Ravenwood University formally recognizes Shara Williams as the sole rightful owner of the bioactive compound research. All related publications have been withdrawn indefinitely. A breath Shara didn't know she was holding escaped her. After the hearing, the corridors buzzed with whispers, fear, admiration, disbelief. But Shara walked through them calmly. Today, she reclaimed what had been ripped away. That afternoon, her inbox chimed. From Y. Dynas Pharma, Dr. Ursula Venn. We would like to schedule a personal meeting. Our board unanimously agrees. We wish to sponsor your continued research. We would like you to lead a new oncology development team. We propose a full intellectual property protection contract under your name. Shara reread the message twice, hand trembling, the words sinking into her in warm waves. Hours later, she arrived at the biomedical lab, her lab now. The door creaked open with a soft groan. Inside, the space was still a mess of shattered glass and broken equipment, remnants of Leo's destruction. But the sunlight pouring through the wide window felt different today, gentler, forgiving. It illuminated the dust motes floating in slow spirals, as if inviting Shara to rebuild from the remains. Footsteps approached behind her. She turned. Ethan stood with Rex at his side. He leaned casually against the doorframe, hands in his pockets, a faint smile touching the edge of his mouth. The sunlight caught the stubble along his jaw, softening the ruggedness of his features. "Looks like you've got a lab to resurrect," he said softly. Shara laughed. A real, unguarded laugh, warm and cracked with emotion. Her eyes glistened, but this time the tears weren't from despair. Ethan stepped closer. "Congratulations, Dr. Williams. Justice doesn't always come easy, but it came because you stood your ground." Rex gave a happy short bark, tail thumping lightly against the floor. Shara wiped a tear, her smile widening. "Thank you. For everything." Outside the window, the sky cleared completely. The clouds drifted apart like curtains pulled back from a stage, revealing a stretch of brilliant blue over Ravenwood University. And under that new sky, Shara's future, rightfully hers, finally began. Sometimes justice arrives not through noise or power, but through quiet courage, unexpected allies, and the mysterious grace that we often call a miracle. In Shara's journey, every setback shaped her strength, and every closed door revealed the unseen hand of God guiding her toward something greater. Her story is a reminder that even in the darkest corners of our lives, there is a light prepared for us long before we know to ask for it. And, just like Shara, each of us faces moments where we must rise, protect what is right, and trust that faith will carry us the rest of the way. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments, tell someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe so we can bring you more stories of hope, bravery, and redemption. May God bless you, watch over your family, and guide your steps through every challenge you face.